Welcome to another episode of All Hands on Tech. I'm your host, Claire Quirion. This week's episode is brought to you by the 2025 Tech Forward Awards, happening on November 20th. These awards celebrate the best of Nova Scotia tech. Tickets are available now. Today we're joined by Olesya, Shyvikova, and Chris Curtis of Palladium MC, providing cutting-edge solutions in agritech, industrial optimization, automated security systems, and more. Let's dive in. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you.
It's okay. You can welcome me too. This is not my home. I appreciate that. We always start these with some icebreakers. You know, we want to start off nice and easy, get the conversation flowing. But after chatting with you two before this, I don't think conversation is going to be a problem. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this. So we'll start off with a very important question, and I think really defines people.
Sure.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee.
Turkish coffee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I got addicted to that in Kuwait. And by your third or fourth glass, you are shaking so badly from Turkish coffee.
You don't drink 4 glasses of Turkish coffee. You drink 2. Like, it's not your, American coffee that you drink. But
True, but you know what? I would say this. I was always a Tim's guy. Like,
Okay.
I would just Tim's Horton coffee. I never had
Right.
any type of appreciation for coffee.
Right.
And then my current spouse, when I met her, she's a very big coffee aficionado. So now my coffee routine in the morning is like 15, 20 minutes long, right? You got to get the foam already and the cinnamon. And I go through the whole thing now. And it's not a coffee unless I get to do that.
Wow. I respect that, though. So Turkish coffee, that's kind of hard to make at home, though. You got the sand. And
you don't need the sand. You just need this little thing that we call jazva.
Yeah.
And on slow heat, you mix your coffee, you pour water, and then you watch it brew. It's like a witch brew, and you mix it until it foams, and and you drink it black like a psychopath.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the consistency of coffee flavored caulking.
Yeah.
Like it's just thick.
It is really thick. It really is. Okay, so you're like the complete opposite of tea drinkers. You are so far down
I drink
the
a lot of
coffee.
tea too.
And me too. And I call myself a tea snob. I like my Darjeeling, for example, that you don't get anywhere but Pete's or
So complex.
And you can't grow up in Cape Breton without tea.
Okay.
That's
true.
the one
That's
rule
true.
of Cape Breton is there's always a teapot on the stove.
Right.
And so I only drink coffee in the morning, and the rest of the day will be tea. But no tea in the morning. It has to be coffee.
Oh my gosh.
And in Ukraine, when you're happy, you make tea. When you're sad, you make tea. You just make tea. Like, would you like a cup of tea? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about Ukraine. I know that about like the UK. They're always drinking tea. So
Soaked in sugar.
yes, of course.
Soaked in sugar. But anyway.
I love it. Okay, so very complex people is what I'm getting so far. A little bit of everything.
Mystery.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what's something about, so you do a lot of work in multiple spaces. A lot of the work you do is in the agritech space.
Yes. Yeah.
What surprises people about that space when you tell them? Is there something that people don't typically think of when they think of agriculture?
Yes, that it is possible actually to automate a tractor or a piece of equipment from 1990s and make it into modern equipment that a farmer needs today. People are always like, oh, really? Like, yes, it is.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think we've seen a dynamic change over the last 100 years of farming, right? Farming was something that a family could get involved in that would support them and support their local communities. And we certainly have some very successful farms across Nova Scotia. But by and large, I would say that people's view of farming today, whether it be the medium to large size family farm, is that, nobody has the thought, I want to open up a profitable business. I'm going to go into farming.
Right.
So, it's an absolutely integral part of our economy and how we support ourselves regionally. But a lot of people see it in itself as a kind of a dying industry.
Right.
And that's what we want to tackle.
That's very true. It's something we were talking before that's kind of like an inherited thing. It's not as often that you find like new farmers.
Not many. I would say most people view it as a passion.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're in farming, you're passionate about farming, you're passionate about sustainability, you're passionate about the environment. And there probably is a lot of farmers that fit that mold, right? But with the things that are causing dynamic stresses in that whole sector, the challenges are really starting to be paramount. I think the numbers say in Canada over the last 6 years, family farms have continually lost profitability. I know the Farmers Federation of Nova Scotia had a call to action because combined, Nova Scotia farms lost, I think it was $41 million last year.
So basically what we want to do, we want to make farming into something really futuristic. When, I'm a farmer will sound, as good as, I'm a pilot of a modern jet.
Right.
So this what is our vision.
I love that. That's amazing. So let's get into kind of the meat of this. I'd like to know more about Palladium's journey. You have the slogan, the sword to the plow, which creates an amazing image in our minds. So I'd like to know a little bit about how your mission has evolved and kind of how you got to where you are today.
So Palladium actually started almost 2 years ago on the front lines of Ukraine. Our friendship goes much beyond that. And, Chris was always my sounding board. He knows about my adventures all around the world. But I was in Ukraine. I was on the front lines working as a journalist and a humanitarian. And I would always look around and I see those farms, and the front line in Ukraine is almost all of it goes through the farmland. And this fertile, the breadbasket of Europe and the breadbasket of the world, black, dark soil, all mined, all full of the shelling and metal pieces and, and debris and everything. I'm like, how are we going to go back to farming? How are we going to restore this land? And this kept being in the back of my mind. I'm not a farmer. Mm-hmm. And then, I guess, when you ask a question to the universe so many times, the answer is come. So I met someone on the front lines of Ukraine. They are a demining company, Fenix Insight, who became one of our partners. And they had a very cool AI tech of recognizing landmines by video feed from the drone. And, the whole AI, defense grade, non-hallucinated, never was exposed to the open source. They were really, really cool, doing some really cool stuff. And then also through my work with Ukraine, I met a guy who worked with Bosch, agricultural sector for many 30 years. And he told me about this wonderful platform, of automation and IoT. And I had this too. I went to Chris and I told Chris, do you think there is something there? And he told me, let's do it. Because it looks like it can help your motherland, it can help Canada, and it evolved from just wanting to demine and restore the land to really wanting to make an evolution and a revolution in the ag tech sector. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it started out with a connection to Ukraine. Me and my spouse hosted a couple of Ukrainian families when they first started coming to Canada, and I knew Olesya before that. My partner had worked with her at CBC. And, I think I reached out to you originally to come and do some translating because the first family that came had very little English. And I had just gone through a fairly traumatic trying to acquire a company locally here in Nova Scotia, and we weren't successful, me and the team that had put together the bid. And I remember looking at my spouse and saying, you know what, that was really stressful. I don't know if I'm up for this anymore. I think I'm just going to do the 9 to 5 thing. Mm-hmm. Turning 50 years old, and Olesya called me 2 weeks later. So, and we just started down this path. But, in Ukraine, there's 275,000 square kilometers of contaminated farmland, right? Heavily contaminated with munitions. Mm-hmm. And in order for Ukraine to recover post-conflict, it's going to be really important to get that that farmland back to production. So we kind of approached this from, well, hey, we can integrate these two technologies. We could do mine detection and mapping to help clear the landmines post-conflict. But with the drones that we were going to use, we imagined putting different sensor packages on them so that we could get real health analytics on the soil, so that we could help turn over the land much quicker back to agriculture. So that was kind of the original framework of the idea that we had.
And from the sword to the plow, it was, at that time I was very heavily involved with the sword part. And I need, even for my own well-being, I needed the plow part too. Right. I needed to see beyond what is going to happen when the conflict is over. It's not over yet, but we always have to have this future hopeful thinking, right? And so what came out from the front lines of Ukraine is now benefiting us here in Canada. And that we see, one good seed planted there in this scorched land now is growing over across the ocean to here.
That's incredible. I had no idea that was how it all started. And I think that's super inspiring and amazing that you're able to have such an impact in a place that needs it the most, but also to apply a lot of that technology and those learnings in across the world.
Yeah, and the whole sword to the plow, one of our primary technology partners, Fenix Insight in the UK, is a defense organization.
Right.
They supply intelligence and AI systems for defense applications and intelligence. So they work with a lot of NATO countries around the world, and it has a very stellar reputation. And we were looking at what they had built. They had been your traditional demining company. They would go out and hire thousands of people, and it takes about 220 hours and an 8-man team to clear a hectare, so 2.2 acres. And it was slow. It was very costly, and the margins on the contracts that they were doing were very poor. Like you don't make a lot of money.
$100 per square meter.
So they had they had looked at demining back in 2015 and said, what if we put an emphasis on technology? And so they started building their AI models back in 2015 and went commercial in 2017. But what's really interesting about their AI platform is it's never seen open source data. It has only been programmed with very clean data sets that have been scrubbed. And
right.
So we now have this AI that's at machine learning with a large language module. And its efficiency at the task because it's been taught a very specific task, the efficiency is kind of off the charts. And the benefit to us is we actually, in this space, we have a non-hallucinating AI. So what makes us very different, I think, across the board is we morphed from this, okay, we got an idea for landmine clearance and agriculture land. And then it kind of started morphing into this, well, hold on a second here. If we have clean data sets for any particular problem, the machine's very good at addressing that. But, having a broad machine like ChatGPT, which is covering a whole breadth of topics and different ideas, ours is very, very, very singular in its approach.
Very focused, yeah. Yeah, very cool. Wow, that's amazing. So I see this word a lot when we talk about you. AIDA, AIDA. What does that stand for?
AI Deployment Accelerator.
Okay. So it's described as a cutting-edge AIoT platform used across agriculture, security, industrial workflows. What inspired the development of this, and how did your team envision it as kind of a multi-industry solution?
Yeah, starting from the landmines, when we came aboard with Fenix, we came with different experiences and different, sets of skills. And they never thought about the agricultural aspect of it. And then, when connecting it to the Bosch platform and make it into an, AI agricultural accelerating platform, we understood that actually it's not agriculture only, because any industry has the same set of problems they want to solve. Any industry that uses automation in any way or form, it will have a copy and paste, algorithm that agriculture will. And then we came to Fenix, and also, if you are detecting landmines, can you detect weapons, guns and knives and everything? And they're like, oh, we actually can. Right. And so in the past year and a half, they developed another set, of skills. And now they can detect threats like guns and knives, not only explosives. So and hence we face a problem that many in the industry tell us, narrow down. Everyone who was ever successful just focused on one, and we're like, but we can't. And why don't we challenge the industry and challenge the VC capitals and say, actually, it's a platform. And so it can serve multi-industry, and it actually solves, this gap. Oh, we're developing only for this or only for that.
Yeah, I think one of the drivers originally for agriculture was the technology that Palladium is using from Bosch, right? We have the system, the source code. this system was designed to automate machines. That was its entire purpose, was to automate machines and take in data sets and break them down into usable chunks.
Mm-hmm.
The original plan for that Bosch technology was to take it to Ukraine prior to the conflict. And the reason they wanted to go to Ukraine was twofold. One, it had a huge agricultural sector, and the second was it had a booming IT industry. So Bosch felt if they brought it with their strategic partners they were working with at the time to Ukraine, that basically if you build it, they will come, right? That the IT industry in Ukraine would really lock into this platform and start developing applications for farming.
Right.
So that was Bosch's initial intent. And then the war broke out, and geopolitically they didn't see a way forward.
Right.
So it kind of got parked. And so we've picked up that torch. Right? We've said, okay, well, no, this is still relevant, and actually it's relevant to a whole bunch of different industries. So, the pull to agriculture came from Olesya's personal experience in Ukraine, but the Bosch platform in its original design was intended for that agri-tech sector. So what we've done is we've taken a very matured technology, because Bosch also has that on a vehicle framework that they use in about 8 million cars globally. So, the system itself has been around for a long time and is a very reliable system. What made Palladium completely unique is we're probably one of the very few companies in the world now that have successfully integrated AI to an IoT system. And so, when we talk about automating gear for farming, it's not just automating, it's optimization.
Right.
So regardless of what you throw in front of the machine or the conditions that are, we'll call God-made conditions, so, fast famine, flood, that the system just is always taking in the information from its surroundings and is trying to optimize to the best of its ability, right?
Right.
So if you threw something out in front of the tractor, instead of the tractor stopping, it would say, hold on a second, I can just back up and move over here and continue to work. So really the power in that system is not just in the automation, it's in the fact that we're using very significant data sets to optimize every function of that machine.
Yeah.
And so how we envision it, we want to be an Android or Apple store for AI and automation. Easy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Agri-tech app, right? That's really what it comes down to. And so what started out originally is us saying, okay, we can automate machines, we can reduce the labor load on a farm, and we can optimize things like land use, water use, chemical use, fertilizer use. We're pulling in data sets from the soil conditions around it, but we're doing that in real time, right? So we're not looking at samples that were taken a couple weeks ago and sent to a lab and brought back. And the power in that, of course, is that you can adjust almost on a day-to-day basis, kind of meeting the demands of the farm. The beauty aspect of it is the data that we collect is of value to people. People like Cargill and BASF, who make chemicals and fertilizers for that farming sector. So if we can provide them really good data sets in terms of the actual conditions on the ground in a particular area, that helps them optimize their product offering to the customer.
Right.
So how we envision AIDA rolling out over the next 24 months is by the time we get to the end of it, we will have within that an e-commerce platform. So the farmer can not only go in and get the report on his current soil conditions and what's happening, but once he gets that report, he can just go in through the app and go to his suppliers. So what we're really optimizing is the machines, the machine-human process, the inputs to the farm, and also the data sets that will serve the supply chain that goes into it. So it's a fairly encompassing system.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And it also can be taken to multi-industries like mining,
Forestry, right? All the same applications.
Do you think these industries, I mean, maybe that's a broad question because every industry is really different. Do you think they're ready for that? Like all this data, do you think they're ready to take this big step?
That's a very good question. What we found is that farmers are not actually all ready. Right. Because there is quite a little bit of of suspicion and pushback to this. And one of the reasons is because the new automated machines cost a lot of money. For example, if they bought a machine 10 years ago and they're still paying installments, and it costed up to $1 million, they would be like, why do I need another one that can, talk and cut your hair and, make your coffee if this is enough and sufficient for me? Right. But what we bring and what we want to show, and there's a pilot underway, hopefully, with the province, that we can take a machine from 1990s, 2000s, and turn it into an automated machine for a fraction of the cost?
Yeah, there's a barrier, right? The vast majority of the platforms out there that are available today are very closed platforms. So,
Right.
We know IoT systems in buildings, right? They control things like smoke detectors and lighting modules and heating systems and things of that nature, fire protection. It can be the same outside of the manufacturing and business environment, but when you're trying to do it outside of that environment, what you're dealing with is that the conditions that are around that machine during the automation process change inch by inch, right? So you have to be able to take in data almost in real time speed to direct that, and that's where this Bosch platform is really incredible. We don't even need 5G connectivity to keep the machine working, right?
Oh.
So we can use things like control drones, right, that will enable you to go outside of 5G spaces. So what we realized when we started this, what was interesting was that when Bosch originally had the idea behind the Agritech Accelerator, they started to build an ecosystem of companies around it that would be providing components of it, whether it be a sensor or a camera or things of that nature. That ecosystem still existed, and our partner, David Bailey, who's in Graz, Austria, was very involved in the project and understood it and knew who all the ecosystem companies were, and he kept in touch with them. So here we are, this AIoT company that is in its infancy and startup, but we now have an ecosystem of already 300 plus companies around us that are supplying components to it. And I think the challenge that we have to overcome in this country is, due to our relative isolation from Europe and Southeast Asia, is it doesn't always have to be built at home. Now, from a perspective of economics and GDP, that's a great thing. But what we're talking about is there are hundreds, if not thousands, of companies around the world with emerging, wonderfully great technologies that just need a common platform for development and deployment. And so if you tried to do that in the agricultural space today, you'd have to go to John Deere. And if you sell John Deere, you can only sell John Deere, and you can only buy John Deere. And what we're saying is, no, that's not the reality. The reality is that there is functional development platforms for this available in the market. There is a very healthy ecosystem of technology providers that can do it. And you can take a machine that you invested a significant sum of money in 10 years ago and turn it into the machine you need today for a fraction of the cost of a used piece of equipment. So when you remove that barrier, right, of it costs too much, it certainly changes the industry's thoughts around it. What we're out to do now is prove it.
Right.
Also, to answer your question, all these industries like agriculture and mining and forestry, there is a lot of backlash, in terms of mining causes, ecological disasters and ecological impacts. What people don't realize that AI and automation can actually reduce the ecological impact in heaps and tons. Why? Because the optimization of a workflow will save a lot of fuel, a lot of energy, a lot of workforce, right? And this is something new that people are very cautious about.
Right.
Yeah, adoption, it's funny. I mean, Canada is one of the most highly educated companies in the world, and we're the slowest in the G7 to adopt AI. There's an issue.
But we have a minister of AI now.
There you go.
Do you know we have a minister
We're
of
on the
AI?
up and up.
Yes.
We're on the up and up.
So I think that's by and large, that is existent in Canada in any industry I've been in.
Yeah.
We're much more cautious to accept the new. And I think there is so much hesitation around AI and its impact to the job market and things that are going to happen that, it tends to shy people away from it. And, throughout this process, what we kind of found is it's the opposite. You have to embrace it. So, our system is really cobotics, right? It's fusing the machine function with the human function, whether it be in a farm, a mine, or forestry. So, that level of participation where you actually have the machine and the human, although maybe not in the same machine at the same time doing the same task, are working proactively and in this optimization flow. So, we do see it as a way for the natural resource sector to kind of gain back some of the ground that they've lost over the last couple of years in terms of that optimization. And so I think it ultimately will be a very powerful thing that, like Olesya said, I mean, whether it's chemicals, fertilizers on farms, or optimized land use and forestry, or using AI to monitor things like dams and tailing ponds,
Right.
those things can bring benefit. And, I understand people's hesitance towards natural resource extraction, but, you know, at the same time, we also are people that have laptops, phones, tablets, and some people even now have TVs in their refrigerators. All of that requires mining. You can't get around it. The rare earth minerals required for that technology, it's just a fact of life.
Right.
So
how can we do it better?
How can we do it better?
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
That's the question.
So in your pitches to these companies is why they should be using your technology. You obviously mentioned a lot of the benefits of it. What are kind of the long-term, like 5-10 years out, impacts that you see in what you try to express to these companies?
So in Nova Scotia, Chris mentioned that, you know, the farming industry is going down. 40 million loss last year. The family farms, the mid-sized farms are suffering, and, you know, the big farms are taking over. We don't have anything against the big farms, but we know that, you know, that historically this is our heritage. Family farms that actually supported the sector the most, right? So and then you can talk about the brain drain. That is very interesting. But what I want to say is that we see an impact of our technology in 5 years, that there are more and more family farms that are using automation, that it becomes affordable and it becomes tailorable to their needs, so that the farms can prosper.
Yeah, and I think the challenge, especially when we're talking to investors, is, you know, AIDA is a platform, right? And there's two components to that platform. One is the IoT function, so the automation function. The second part is the AI, right? So the AI that we're using to optimize the workflows. You know, so regardless of the industry, regardless of the technology, whether it be a LiDAR technology or a camera system, what we do is we give them a functional platform that says, here, whether it's a sensor or a piece of equipment, whatever, here's the toolkit to bring it over to our platform, which will now give you the ability to work with the breadth of technologies across our platform.
Gotcha.
And then on the AI side, if you have a defined business problem and you have data sets for that problem, then, you know, we will go through that with you and we can build, you know, an AI solution for that problem. That's really the niche that we're filling in the world today, because nobody's doing that, right? Nobody's saying to the global ecosystem of technology companies that are out there building new tech, hey, come to a standardized platform. And here, when you come to us, here's your IoT toolkit. So this enables your sensor to work with the breadth of the system of AIDA and the Bosch technology. And here's your toolkit that will help you automate that flow with AI. And we just need to verify the data sets. So that's kind of the unique thing about us. And what we're finding about it, now that we talk to people, is my God, the ecosystem of companies out there. There is a technology in Yamaha that Yamaha uses in Southeast Asia and Japan. It's a LiDAR technology. Why it's not in Canada is beyond me. But
maybe you'll bring it over.
We plan to. They can scan an acre of forest and tell you how many trees, what their species is, and the relative health of that tree. Right?
And this is great for mining industries also, because clear cutting is one of the big things. And, you know, the latest gold mine developments in the province, there are lots of people, you're going to clear cut and this and that. So this kind of technology actually will help reduce the environmental impact. And, you know, one of the farmers told me, but I'm an organic farmer. How are you going to help me? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to help many farms who use heavy pesticides and fertilizers not to, because if you're testing soil in real time, you will not be over fertilizer. You know exactly what you need, because one of the biggest problems of farming is over fertilizing of the soil, because they just regularly do it without testing the soil, right? So we're actually bringing healthier farming from the ground up.
Very cool. I love it. Yeah, I have like no background knowledge of the technologies in these specific sectors. So I love having these types of conversations, because there's just so much to learn and so many cool things that other people are doing.
Oh, listen, I'm 50 years old. I am not by any stretch of the imagination an IT expert at all. But, you know, just being involved in this process for the last 2 years and listening to the ecosystem of companies that are out there, it's really incredible. And I encourage all Nova Scotia companies in the startup spaces, you have to go to the shows. You have to go to Startup Fest in Montreal. You have to go to Elevate in Toronto. You have to go to Web Summit in Lisbon or all in.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we started out this, of course, you know, I'd been involved in processes trying to buy out EBITDA positive profitable companies. Never had worked in the startup space in tech, deep tech before. And so how you approach it is completely different. And you have to have the fortitude and the ability to go to these shows and walk around and just talk to investors. You need to know what they're thinking, and they're going to shoot holes in what you're saying. And then you get to come back and adapt. But there is a really vibrant ecosystem of just amazing companies in Canada. And you know, there's some really good venture capital groups to work with. There's some great accelerator groups to work with. Take your vision and just start knocking on doors.
And after each and every event we go to, we come back home, we recalibrate. And you recalibrate and you change your course a little bit, and then you go further. So that word of recalibrating is so like every event we went to, we came out, oh, I actually know that I know nothing, you know, recalibrate. And that's what probably every startup's journey. But for us, because we're you know, when we were in Montreal for the Startup Fest, we were the only ag tech company. One. It was us. And there was zero investors interested in ag tech. And you know, it was disheartening, but also it was very challenging for us. It was a good challenge. We're like, okay, we'll find one, no problem. Because being unique is like you're a unicorn in a way, and it's all right. Everyone likes unicorns in the end of the day.
That's true.
And the reality is farming is a business, right?
Right.
But nobody sees it as a business anymore, right? A lot of people think that people do farming out of passions. And yes, there are those people, 100%. They're passionate about the land. They're passionate about what they're doing. You know, they face a very steep uphill battle in it. But I would say by and large, you know, nobody graduates from university or high school and thinks, okay, I want to be rich, I'm going to start a farm. But it can be that way, right? If you're using optimization through AI technologies, you're taking a lot of the guesswork out of it. But the most valuable thing, whether it's in threat detection or whether it's in agri-tech or forestry or any of them, is, you know, knowing what to do when, right? That's the challenge, right? So if you take that guesswork out of it, and, you know, a farmer doesn't have to spend 12 hours in his machine out in the field, you know, destroying his back and everything. You know, we can bring back quality of life to the farm. That would be very positive to the community. We reduce the labor load of the farm, which is, you know, in Canada has caused a significant amount of challenge with the foreign workers program. There's, you know, we routinely see abuses in the press and things of that nature. So it's a very complex, dynamic issue to resolve. So, you know, we kind of see this as the way to bring farming back to profitability. And if you had a person that had a little bit of passion about farming, but had a really good business brain, with something like AIDA helping you optimize the farm and automate your machinery, you can turn it into a business. You can be sitting at your desk looking at the data that's coming in and looking at the AI insights that are telling you what to adjust and when, and be profitable. And so really, you know, on the agri-tech accelerator, that is our goal. We want to return farming back to profitability.
Right.
And if you do that, you will save the family farm. And if you save the family farm, you take a significant risk away from the food supply chain within the country. It's great. You know, big agri-tech companies are wonderful. There's space for everybody. But the problem that we have is the family farm's dying.
Right.
And once it's gone, the only thing to fill that void is large corporate enterprises that will come in and buy up the land and put it into its operations. So I think, you know, to keep things secure at a local level, you absolutely have to have family farms. Right? You can't live without them. So if we can return them to profitability, we solve a big problem.
Totally.
Yeah, and also we kind of had this mission and vision from get-go. You know, the 4 founders that came together were like, how do we make a world a better place? Then we looked at one another. It's like, yeah, there are so many that tried before us. And it's almost like a little naive and childish, you know, oh, you're making a world a better place. But you know what? After working for 2 years on that, we're actually doing this.
Yeah.
And from farming to security, I mentioned before that, you know, now the part of the AI learning is threat detection. So making our spaces, our civilian spaces more secure now is also part of our mission. So secure world.
I think that's great. And I think your approach of getting in rooms that you wouldn't usually be in and going to these conferences and, whether they're in Canada or beyond is critical to learning. We recently at DNS started prioritizing a bit more of that, of working with other industries to learn what they're doing and how we could collaborate with them. But also we've recently engaged in some trade missions. So sending Nova Scotian companies, putting them on a global stage and having them talk to people from all around the world, which I think is so interesting. And what they're going to learn is, beyond our borders is, could be life-changing.
For me, Nova Scotia became my second home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Crimea, so I watched my home taken away before, and I moved here. So it just came, in front of my eyes, my home was taken. And then this became my new home. And I asked myself, will I defend it if something ever happens? And I didn't have any hesitation of saying yes. And just a thought that, such a cool technology can or will originate from Nova Scotia and can revolutionize industries is for me, as it come from away, it's a very warm thought. I want Nova Scotia to be put on the map of the technological innovation.
Totally.
Yeah, and I mean, with the platform, we see farmers being able to go in and say, okay, I need a sensor to do this, right? And so they'll log into AIDA, their platform, and they can go into the store app on it, and all the companies that provide components to that system, they can buy them right there, right? So, and this technology is plug and play. The little black box that's used, if the machine doesn't already have it, that we put into it, is very, very cost effective, and it's predominantly just plug and play technology.
And it can be used, like you said, across.
Yep. Just about our only limitation on
sectors.
automation is power steering. In order to automate a vehicle, it has to have power steering. But other than that, we could care less what the vehicle is.
Yeah. Very cool. I've heard there is some conversation around kind of dual tech, especially in the defense world, kind of for defense and kind of civilian use, but what you're saying is it can be used across like any industry, which I think is even a broader
goal.
And talking about the events, the first event we went to, we're like, probably we need to narrow down. We looked at one another, it's like, yeah, we need to narrow down. The second event, when everyone was telling us narrow down, like, why should we? It's like almost like dim your light. No, we want to shine.
Yeah. The challenge for us as a startup is we're a startup, but the technologies that we're integrating are very mature. Right. Even Phoenix's technology is certified by Defense Science Technology Laboratories, Great Britain. It's a certification program you have to go through to work in defense and intelligence. So, the machine that we're using from Bosch has been around for a number of years. They perfected it in vehicle in vehicle automation and integration. We're taking that now out to the outside world off road, and same with the AI. We're taking it from a defense application and saying, okay, well, we can do a lot more with it than that, right? The vision models that we're using within Phoenix are on par or superior to anything that you will find in Silicon Valley.
Right.
So, this is a very, very powerful machine. And the wonderful thing about it is they didn't build it to be everything to everyone.
Right.
They've built a machine for very specific tasking. And so for us, that's ideal because, it's a purpose-built AI machine for business that's non-hallucinating. So for us, it's even in Phoenix's literature, their machine was built to make life and death decisions. Right. So that's the caliber of the technology we're working on. Although the application itself is relatively new, Bosch envisioned this a number of years ago. Right. They saw that this would be the road that they went down. So us picking up that mantle and carrying on with it now is, we're getting a lot of support, and people do genuinely believe in it.
That's awesome. So what's next? How do you see Palladium evolving over the next?
Let me talk about the threat for a second. So, one of the challenges that we've had is that when you have machines like this that are capable of a really broad set of applications, is the investor world wants you to scale, like really narrow down and focus, right? Focus on one specific. But because it's a platform, whatever we do in agritech, it aids us in other industries as well, and whatever we do in those industries help us out with agritech. So it's not even that it's a focus is required. It's what you're doing is you're doing a specific job with a machine. You can define that job. So whether it's a harvester or an excavator or a fellow buncher in forestry, it's relevant. But going where it was funny. So when we started down this path, the very first thing we did is we thought of AIDA as a demining platform, and that we could take. We applied to a competition here in Canada for demining technologies. We were very early in our development. We really didn't understand what we had at the time,
Right.
but we knew it could be used for this application. And so we were in London, England, at our partner's office, Phoenix, and I mean, it's a pretty cool office. Everywhere is surrounded by rockets and RPGs and landmines, and they're piled in every corner, and it's just a kid in a candy store. But we were sitting there, and in Iris, the system that they developed from the AI, it's now been working since 2017. It's one of the very first AIs tested in Ukraine on the battlefield, and the machine is just incredible. And so we were sitting there, and they were talking about just how high the accuracy detection rate was now with the platform and what it was capable of doing. And I was just sitting there, and it was spinning in the back of my head. And I just looked at the Phoenix team, and I said, well, if you can identify a landmine in a pile of junk, why can't you identify a handgun? And they went, well, same principle. We just have to, we could do that. We should try that. So, Phoenix, a lot of the guys came from defense. David Hewitson and Colin King are both ex-British military, British Navy. And Colin King was a commando, and he's the editor of Jane's Military Encyclopedia on Landmines. And his partner and CEO, David Hewitson, is the world's foremost expert in demining. He's, helped write everything from the UN NGO program to worked with the Geneva Mine Action Center.
Wow.
So we did. We programmed the model with a handgun, and we started testing it. And where we are now, we're actually heading over to England next Monday, with our new partner, J.M. Blaze, who's former chief police in Halifax and 25-year veteran of the RCMP, has come on board. And we're going over to see the real world functional test of the beginning of this system to go to commercial. So we're going to have it to market in the next 2 or 3 months. The amazing thing of this technology, and where I think it will be very, very revolutionary for the security industry, is the site doesn't have to change out any equipment. The only requirement we have is an HD quality or better camera, but we can turn any camera into a device that will search for a weapon.
Wow.
When it detects that weapon, it boxes the individual as a threat, labels them as a threat. It takes still images and stores them to cloud. And then what it does is it geolocates them. So using either one camera or multiple cameras, we can pinpoint the position of the person on the campus. And with the Bosch technology, we can then actually just send to a security officer's or a police officer's telephone a picture of the intended target and where he is on the campus, even as he moves. So the equation we're trying to address with this technology is from the point of violence, when it starts, to the interdiction of law enforcement, has a direct correlation to the number of lives injured or lost.
100%.
If you shorten the intervention, right, and they get to that individual, that threat faster, then there's a positive impact on life spared. So that has, even though we're really well down the road of the Agritech Accelerator and we work on that every single day, one of the byproducts that spun out of this technology was the ability to detect weapons. So there's few companies trying using open source data in the United States. They've largely failed just about all their tests. Our technology was actually perfected on landmines before we attempted to take it over to look at things like knives and handguns and rifles.
Right.
So it had already proven itself in that detection of the landmines with a high degree of accuracy. So we're now at the point now of getting the machine up to that accuracy when it comes to weapons like conductive energy weapons, handguns, knives. And and a lot of people say knives, but believe it or not, the vast majority of people that are harmed by a weapon in Canada and Britain is with an edge weapon, not by a gun. Right. So we've put a certain amount of resources into this to get it to market because it's pretty much market ready at this point. We're working out some things with the HMI, but what it again will fill is that void, that platform void. So people in Nova Scotia heard about a Nova Scotia hospital deploying AI metal detectors. That's not competition to us. We can be the overlay that brings that in and connects it to the camera system, right? So that you can use the camera to detect the person that walked through the metal detector and then track them.
Right.
So, what we bring with all of the emerging technologies coming out in AI and security, what a lot of them don't have is a common platform. So if you have, take a piece of infrastructure like Nova Scotia Halifax Airport, there's layers and layers to their security, right? Different machines, different platforms, human, camera, you name it. To tie that all together, right, and then do threat analysis using these machines is a very powerful tool. And, you know, we can interdict the threat far faster than traditional means. So whether that is a stationary camera on a building or in a school or in a hospital, but we also have a deployable field unit, which includes a drone and a hardened laptop. So if you had a stand-up concert, or like what happened at Seaview Park, I think a year or two ago, when the Reunion families went to Seaview Park for Africville, and somebody pulled a weapon and ultimately shot and paralyzed a few people. So, you know, those are the types of things that we want to address, right? We think that there is a way to use this technology ethically and responsibly that can, you know, aid in saving lives, because we're, you know, even somebody said to us the other day, well, what about rampaging vehicles, right? Because that's now a thing, right? People go and rent a vehicle and drive it through a crowd. So trying to get these AI systems to look at things like body positioning and things of that nature to make predictive analysis on threat could be very powerful.
So, and Palladium MC stands for mainstream robotics, MC. And so now you heard the story about the sword and the story about the plow. And for all the VCs that might be listening to that, where we see ourselves in 5 years is changing the narrative of, you know, narrow down and focus, you know, on something, on one, dim your light. Why to do that? So we are seeing ourselves as the trailblazers that are going to say to all the VC capitals, you know what, we didn't narrow down, we actually expanded and we made it.
Yeah, because we're part of a broader team. It's not just us. It's some amazing people at Phoenix. It's amazing people at Bosch. It's amazing people at Yamaha. It's amazing people at Auto IT. It's amazing people.
We have a lot of strong partnerships.
We have a lot of strong partnerships, and bringing their strength into the platform and working with us has really been the thing that's kind of propelled us. Yeah. So even though we're this fledgling deep tech startup that, you know, in Nova Scotia and we're doing all these things, the ecosystem of companies and partners that we're working with bring just an immense breadth of acumen of the various industries that they're working in.
What do you mean fledgling startup? The idea that you and I are Maritimers is the best thing ever. The best thing about this startup is they're from Nova Scotia and you're from Cape Breton. It's even one layer up.
That's the most Nova Scotian.
Yeah.
It is the most Nova Scotian.
And you know, I know there's somebody, you know, from a university that's going to listen to this, or somebody that's thinking about an application or something like that. And if you think about it and you think you got a really good idea, then start talking to your resources. Go in and meet a couple of people at Digital Nova Scotia. Go in and meet with people that are in like industries and start to build your connections. You know, one of the things I say, we're probably, after walking through Startup Fest and stuff, we're probably one of the oldest co-founder teams in deep tech startup in Canada.
He is old, I'm not.
Speak for yourself.
Speak for yourself.
But, you know, and I remember we were in Montreal, we met this little girl, she was like 9 or 10 years old, and she built this education AI, right? I just wanted to just, you know, but the ecosystem of companies that are out there and the people that want to talk to you and tell you about what they're working on and the partnerships and the friends that you find from it, it is a pretty dynamic community, and one that I had never experienced prior to this. And I'm just thoroughly impressed with it.
And also, having a startup is not for the faint-hearted and not for everyone, because it's a gamble. We gamble every day. Well, it's going to sink, or is it going to float? You know, some days you feel it's going to float. Some days it's sinking, and we're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And then, it's afloat again, and we're almost in charge of the wheel. So, it's a very interesting journey. I'm sorry, Chris, that I called you that night.
Drag him into this.
Well, I do remember, and I won't use the word she used because she swore, but when we were in Montreal, they had a girl up, and I can't remember exactly what her business was, but it was something in biotech. And she was, you know, talking about her business, and then they had the Q&A session at the end. And they said, okay, because she had just gone from startup to venture capital funded to now, they're turning it into a business.
48 million was the last round.
Yeah, and I said to, they asked her, well, what's the biggest difference? What's the biggest change you noticed from startup to, successful venture capital raise and into operations? And she said, well, in the startup phase, and she swore, but she said, we screwed up every day, right? Every day we screwed up. Every day we made a mistake. Every day we made a wrong decision. And she said, now that venture capital is involved, we screw up every day still. We just recover from it faster.
Right.
And so, because when you're doing this, you take all of your interactions pretty hard to heart, right? You think you've got this amazing idea. You think you got these great partners and this wonderful application. And it's for a lot of people that come into it luckily I had a 35-year career in sales, so I was used to hearing no. But a lot of people aren't.
Right.
And so you have to develop that fortitude to just say, okay, it doesn't work for them, but there's somebody else in this room that's going to work for it. And you just have to keep propelling yourself to making those connections. So you can't do it without that legwork. If some people get lucky, but by and large, you've got to go to these shows, and the ecosystem of people that you see there, and the companies and the ideas and stuff it'll lift you up. You'll come out of it thinking, wow, this is really amazing.
And I'm not alone. And this is a very important thing on this journey. Oh, there are other people that screw up.
Yeah.
There are other people that need to recalibrate every day, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of make a good team, because I have a 13-year career in filmmaking and independent filmmaking. And so I'm used to hearing no, probably much more than you. So, yes.
I don't know. I'm not that good looking. I was never that good at But no, the companies that are out there and the work that they're doing is really incredible. And I would like to see in Halifax and in Nova Scotia, that community that you see in Montreal, that you see in Toronto and Waterloo and elsewhere across the country. If you look at the universities that we have, and one of the things that we had an idea for, which is kind of compelling to our story, is we want to meet with Dalhousie and give them access to our IoT system, right, including the source code. We want to bring it to their computer sciences school and their agriculture school and their engineering school and say, look, we have real problems in agriculture in Nova Scotia. You guys are kind of the next generation of developers. What are some of the ideas and the apps that you can come up with? With this powerful platform, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of applications for it. We will never have the resources, the money, or the time to do that, right? To focus that broadly. So what we see is we can empower this industry by going to organizations like Dalhousie and say, here, free of charge. Here's access to the system. What can you build with it?
Yeah.
What are the why don't you meet with your agricultural school and find out what the issues are in the agricultural sector and see if we can bring the engineering school and the computer sciences school together to work on that collaboratively. Because we're not in the business of making apps. We're in the business of providing connectivity.
Right.
Right? That's our business. So we want other people to build apps and bring them to the platform.
Right.
And so, there is a scenario here where we, it might not just be Dalhousie. Maybe it's 4 or 5 universities across Canada that want to take up this challenge, that we will give them free, unfettered access to the system with the source code that they can start working on today's problems.
That's awesome.
Well, and in Ukraine, it's already happening. There are lots of universities that are working with companies, and doing the same. And one of the coolest things I've seen so far that came out of the project like this is a robot dog that can sniff and detect odors. It analyzes the air, and it's so cool. It's a little robotic dog, it's a Fido.
Yeah.
But Fido can and can detect odors of this and this and that, and can be used for medical and biomedical, and can be used to detect fires. And it's a tiny little terrier dog. So it blows my mind what technology can do, and it's AI, IoT powered. So Chris, if anything else fails, we're gonna make a cat.
There you go.
I'm a dog guy.
Well, you're obviously doing so much already, and there's so much that you plan to do, and you could do even beyond that. So this has been an amazing conversation. I've learned so much, and I can't wait to see what comes out in hopefully a few months and beyond that. So thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
sharing
having
with us.
Thank you.
All right.
Wonderful.